and welcome to 10 Very Big Books, a Malazan Readthrough podcast. My name is Peter Bond. I've read every book in the main series. However, my co-hosts are reading the series for the first time. With me today is my friend and closest confidant, India Jones.
Here.
And our producer, AJ Faleri. How are the levels looking?
The levels are great.
And finally, he's the son of darkness, the mane of chaos, the lord of moonspawn, and the knight of high house dark, Joshua Dean Baker!
It's me.
I literally wish that I had a cool intro. I just feel like every time I'm like, present.
You really did a class roll call today.
I'll say this though, it's nice to have consistency. I'm always like, what's it this week? I hope I recognize the reference.
Who am I today?
Yeah.
And thanks to Harrison Figuera for sending that in.
Thanks, Harrison.
That was a good one, Harrison.
I just want to say, y'all text me throughout the week, and we're going to talk about all the chapters in depth, of course, but I was all surprised. It seemed like most of you are actually pretty into these chapters, and I was like, I always find for me, at this point in the book, since I know how each one ends, I'm always like really giddy, and I'm like, let's just get on with it,
Right.
So I always feel at this point, I become very impatient. But it seemed like the three of you were somewhat hot on these chapters, or am I wrong?
I liked it. It's pretty solid.
I liked them a lot. I liked the first three better than the last one. I thought they were great though. The first two were actually, I thought they really lured me in. Probably because the first one was Felison though, and I don't think we get enough of her in this. So it's really interesting to actually hear from her perspective. So that made me happy.
I also think for me, it's like as I've said, the ending of Memories of Ice is like one of the greatest things I've ever read, and like now knowing like this book's gonna probably do something similar. Like I'm excited to get that high again of like how does it all work?
Just kind of see how things will converge this time.
Yes.
I will say though, this time they threw a lot at me, a lot of historical things.
There's a lot.
All of which I have no idea about. So I'm really excited to explore that a little further.
There was actually one moment in one of these chapters, in the very beginning of one of the chapters, they go really deep into like Kellanved and stuff. And I think I got it all. I feel really good about myself.
With Cutter's Crocus nailing it. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get it started at hot. Let's get it started in here.
What?
Let's get it started.
That's right, AJ. Roll the music.
We're using only Black Eyed Peas tracks this episode.
That's how you know we're feeling spicy.
Oh my god.
We're recording 2 episodes today, and I don't know if you can tell from the energy.
Guys, have I told you that I once played in a band and we played Let's Get It Started in here at a Wilmington Blue Rocks baseball game in front of a huge crowd?
We can't get into this.
I'm busy starting the show.
I wish I was kidding.
Chapter 18. Felison recalls her youth, where Tavor was recreating a famous battle with her toys. As Shaikh, she looks out across the desert in front of her, where Corbeau-Dom wants to engage the 14th. She speaks with Mathok about the battle and the commanders. Then they speak of cold and hot iron, wondering which will triumph. Mathok is skeptical of Corbeau-Dom and thinks perhaps Karsef and Leoman wield the will of cold iron. With Leoman's riders, we are introduced to Korab Tinulus. Sworn to Leoman, they will soon attack the 14th despite Shaikh's orders. Lorik visits Kars's grove. He senses the magic within and reflects on both Shaikh and Tavor. He thinks more on the politics of the camp and wonders if the goddess is too strong for Shaikh to control. She then speaks with Felison Younger about the camp, orphans, and Karsa. Shaikh struggles, but then enters Haboric's tent. Powerful wards free her of the whirlwind goddess's influence, and there for a moment, she is Felison Perrin, truly. She thinks on Felison Younger and Tavor. She speaks with Haboric briefly, but then he pushes her outside of the tent and the goddess returns to her. Vidithal rests in shadow, thinking on Febril and his schemes and of shadow itself. Corbel Odam sits with his assassins, thinking on the mission he is sending them on, and then he goes to speak with chemist Relo, and together they speak of Haborik, Shaikh, and the other commanders. They clash over dangers in the camp and go their separate ways. Scalara, a woman who had spent the night with Corbel, staggers through the camp thinking on her past, then sends a message and coins to Bidefall. Haborik finds Felison and Lorik speaking in the grove, and they speak more of what is to be done about Bidefall. Korab, amongst Leoman's warriors, attack the Malazans, but only briefly. They draw the Malazans' attentions, and then their horse warriors ride after them in pursuit. The mage Febel sits to watch the sunrise, thinking on the goddess and Shaikh. Shaikh then sits to join him, and together they speak of power, the whirlwind, and what is coming. So in this chapter, we come back to Rariku, and we really are touching in with all of these plot lines. As we, at this point in the story, we've really come to understand all of the different factions within the rebellion. And we understand all these different people who have their own ends and kind of what they want out of it. So it starts with Felison and speaking with Corbel Odam, and together they're speaking about different types of commanders and reflecting on what it is to be a leader like this. So, Josh, what did you think about this conversation about cold and hot iron and them reflecting on her leadership and perhaps the Adjunct Tavor leadership?
I thought it was one of the singular dumbest conversations I've ever read.
Okay, why so?
Because it boiled down. Here's what it boiled down to me. Felison was like, yes, this will work. And Malthut goes, do you ever think about thinking maybe it wouldn't and then preparing for that eventuality? And then Shaikh going, well, fuck. Who does that? And the answer is smart people who are good at battle and don't rely on overwhelming advantages and assume that the people they're fighting against are also smart, which seems to be a thing you would do. And it just, like this whole conversation of like hot and cold iron, I was like, you just mean dumb and not dumb.
Facts.
That's all I could think the whole time. Because here's the deal. You remember in fucking Deadhouse Gates, Coltane just wins every time because Coltane just thinks real good. And every time everyone's just like, but Corbel Odam, he's got all these people and he's doing this. But I like looking back, it's like, oh yeah, Corbel Odam just does one thing each battle. He like does not have contingencies for if thing A does not work. And so I just like, I was reading it and I was just like, they can't, no, these characters can't be that dumb. No. And then they were like, who's the one cold iron? And I was like, it's obviously Leoman. It was just really silly to me. I don't know. Like, I get how it's supposed to be this really big moment of like, oh, Felison having doubt or Shaikh having doubt. It just didn't ring true for me because I was just like, how are you that dumb? Like, you never think that you're like, they were like, oh yeah, this all works so long as they do this thing that Corbel Odam has prepared them to do. And it was like, they're just not going to do that then. Like, the other army's just not going to do that. That's easy. That's first grade, baby.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I do think the conversation's a bit reductive, if that's like...
Yeah.
Well, I just don't understand the point of using, like, cold iron and hot iron. It's, like, impulsive or, like, calculated. Like, why can't we
that's
just,
like... Yeah, that was the thing. It was like we gave this really badass name to just, like, are you a type A or are you a type B person?
And then they're acting like it's, like, hard to tell the difference. Like, oh, well, he can tell you who's cold iron and who's hot iron. And
it was
like,
so silly. It was so much.
Yeah, I agree.
Hot iron, Kaladin Brood. He just marches towards that city and he's like, you know what? Worst comes worst, hammer. Got it.
I mean,
Don't forget.
I gotta say, I do think I think it's fun that this little dunk you're doing. I do think it's getting at something a little true, but I agree it is a little reductive. If that's I'll cede you that, you know.
Thank you. Like, I under the concept is very important and I get that, but like I just can't imagine this close to the battle is the first time they're being like, man, what if this didn't work? Like that feels
Plan
like
B?
yeah. I don't know.
So,
I mean, I'll say this though. Having read further, like the other chapters, I mean, I do believe most of it stems from Corbel Odam being the epitome of thinks he's the smartest in the room, and like, I mean, that seems to a lot of it stems from that, and everyone being like, he probably is, yeah, when it comes to battle.
Now I'm gonna come to you, AJ. So, Leoric has really emerged as a point of view character in this story at this point. and even more so later on. And at this point, he goes to Karsta's Grove and he speaks with Felison Younger, and they kind of reflect on what to do. And I'd love to know what you think. We can talk more about it later on when he goes on his whole dream journey thing. But how you're feeling about Leoric, and what do you think his position is within this camp right now?
I mean, his position kind of seems like he is now more concerned with his stuff. Like, he obviously is like worried about Felison Younger and stuff, but is now with his familiar gone and whatnot. I feel like he's now like, oh, gotta find my dad. Really gotta find my dad. So I don't know. I think it's I think he is less a part of. I mean, in this chapter at least, because when we come back and we talk to Haboric and whatnot, stuff kind of shifts. But I think as of right now, in this chapter, he's kind of just like trying to figure that out, like what his place is in this camp now. Trying to feel that out, I guess.
Well, a lot of what he's reflecting on here too is if the Whirlwind Goddess is too powerful for Shaik, and what's this blurring line between Felison and the Whirlwind Goddess? Which brings us to the next scene where she enters Haboric's tent. She's freed of the Whirlwind Goddess's influence, and then for a moment she's kind of has this lucid conversation with Haboric. India, what did you think of this conversation, and what did you think of seeing Felison like this?
I liked that part. I think it was interesting because I obviously realized that there was a change and a difference in her personality, but then to see her like snap out of it and come back to it, like, you forget how kind of she was before, where she was just like angry, and she had so many emotions. So for them to like flood back so rapidly and to read that was really interesting. I was a little bit puzzled though by why Haboric, like when she started to questioning, like, wait, where's Felison? I haven't seen her in a while. Like I don't, why are I'm just wondering what the bigger plan is that everyone has that she just has no idea about. And how we pushed her out of the tent, and then she obviously had the goddess come back and totally like forgot what she was thinking and just was like, oh yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to see her come back for a second, and just to see like such a stark difference between how cold and like just unaware the Whirlwind Goddess, Shaik, whatever, is, compared to Felison, who's just very much like in her feelings and just more human, obviously.
I think I kind of bounce off this scene in a way, because although I like seeing Felison, I do appreciate the kind of ambiguity and the kind of metaphorical line we're walking when we're talking about blurring the line between Felison Perrin and feeling so possessed by vengeance, or so possessed by fury, these emotions or something. So I think to make it very literal and then be like, oh no, she like actually forgot who actually she was, kind of brings a clarity to that point that I think kind of undermines the symbolism that resonates for me when I think about that. Josh, what did you think about this scene in Haboric's tent?
I think it was like the first time that I felt like a positive feeling towards Felison in quite a while. I really felt bad for her because it just, I mean, she's so trapped within this Whirlwind Goddess, fragment of a warren, whatever, that like, I don't know, it really felt like, it feels like she has hate towards her sister, and this Whirlwind Goddess just took that and like just made like, oh, I can work with that, and that's like the only thing that it cares about in terms of the person Felison. I don't know, I felt really bad for her.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see her still like connect with Haboric. Like she's been very much using Haboric this book, rather like, especially with that whole tea thing and just casually revealing that she had lied to him the whole time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I felt it was a nice moment between the two of them, and it also showed that like Haboric still has some not fatherly, but like protectorly. I don't know what I'm looking for. Feelings towards her.
Well, how did you feel then when Haboric kind of at the end kind of abruptly pushes her out of the tent and kind of forces the goddess back onto her, so to speak?
I think he's smart. He has his reasons for what he's doing.
I do think he is doing something. I just don't know what. And
yeah, agreed.
And the tables have turned, man. She was manipulating him, and I don't know if he's manipulating her, but he's definitely keeping something from her. So
I do think they have such a changing relationship. It's really dynamic, and sometimes, like earlier in the book, they're crying together, and like he really is her only support in that moment. And then other times, they're like really manipulating and playing these games with each other, and like trying to play this type of emotional chess, and it's very not loving. You know, it's very kind of
toxic.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's a complicated thing these two find themselves in. So we touch in with Bidethal a bit, but I'd like to more shift the focus to Corblo Dom, who we see speak to his assassins, and Chemist Relo, and they're plotting more and talking about what they want out of the next few days. So, Josh, you're raising your hand. Are you a Corblo Dom enthusiast?
Oh, please.
Yes,
no.
I want to pop in Josh's recurring Steven Erickson is a weeb corner. This just, like, I'm watching a lot of One Piece right now, and there's just times when, like, the bad guy gathered, like, all of a sudden he's like, yes, my top people, who I won't say the names of, because if I said names, the audience would have to worry about you. So they're just his top people, and it's just like, oh, you're all gonna die really quick, and Corblo Dom's gonna be like, what? I planned so hard for this! And I just can't wait for that.
I will say, to me, and Corblo Dom comes up later, Corblo Dom is maybe amongst the worst people in the series for me, you know? And
Oh, yeah.
I think it's because he truly doesn't believe in anything. And, you know, to paraphrase the Big Lebowski, you know, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, but at least it's an ethos, you know? And I think the same thing could be said about Bidethal, or like the Children of the Dead Seed, or these truly terrible people, you know? They at least believe in something and are trying to transform the world to fix their deeply flawed and toxic political outlook, you know? But like, Corblo Dom believes in nothing besides his own pursuit of power, you know?
Yeah.
And is truly kind of a sniveling, just like, I don't know, egotist. And is doing
The dude sucks.
and is doing nothing but pursuing his own prestige and rank. So to me, that is particularly terrible. You know, I'm not saying it's worse than like the terrible crimes committed by Biddle or these things, but it's you know, I don't know.
He reminds me of Calor, but like I'm
Facts.
not intimidated by him. You know, Calor is an ancient, unbelievably old man, still fast enough to murder people. Corblo Dom's just kind of like a dude. Sucks.
Scalara is a new character we meet. Do the three of you have thoughts about her?
I'm so sick of no, I don't have thoughts about her. What's the point? Why are we introducing this new character to give like...
She's a spy.
I feel like if we're going to bring her into this, then we must be giving Bidethal, or whatever his name is, a larger plot. Because what is the point of bringing her, his little minion, into it?
I feel like, I was going to say, it feels like Steve has said in the interviews, I think, that he explicitly doesn't let us into certain people's heads. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the dude with Leoman, I'm pretty sure we actually haven't been in Leoman's head.
No,
or if we haven't.
You haven't.
Yeah. So I was like, when looking at this thing, I was just like, man, why do we meet that guy? And I was like, oh, it's because we can't be in Leoman's head. And there's probably someone else's head that we can't be in for whatever reason. So we have to have a third party. / I guess we do just need to see like the transfer of information, and like we learn stuff through her.
Yeah. And I think
true.
this makes Bidethal less of like a like omnipotent, just kind of like scary dude who knows stuff somehow, and it's like we're seeing how he's like getting information from, at least, you know, if he has Scalara, there are probably others, you know, in different...
We know those others because
exactly.
like those people who are digging through the refuse pits are also people part of Bidethal's people.
So Haborik speaks with Felix and Lork in the Grove, and together they're kind of thinking about what Bidethal might be doing. So Josh, we just spoke about him a little bit with Scalara, but what's your read going on with what Bidethal's up to and why they're keeping around? They've kept him around for a while, but there's this kind of delicate game everyone's trying to play in a camp. So do you think you have any more insight about this?
Well, I think this showed me how much more, how do I say this? Like, up until this section of the book, I thought that this plot against Felison was, like, competent. And I'm slowly realizing it is more just kind of people like, man, I really hope this part works. In, like, a lot of ways, Like, I didn't expect Bidethal to, like, okay, let me see if I get this right for my sake, okay? So, in this camp, there is Shaik. Okay, who wants to destroy people, because that's what Felison wants right now, is to destroy Tavor. And maybe maybe the Whirlwind Goddess has another motive, but that's the main one right now, okay? In the camp, Corporal Dom wants to use this defeat he wants to do stuff until he's the Emperor, basically.
Sure.
Through treachery. Bidethal wants to create his army of people and become the Lord of Shadow, I think? I know that's just kind of reducting a lot, yes, but that's his whole thing, is he's trying to take back Shadow from, what's his face, Shadow Throne?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
He talks about Shadow Throne and stuff.
Okay, and then the last one, Febrile, and Bidethal is not working with Corporal Dom. He is just agreeing to not get in his way, and he's been the one who's been waiting to give his answer to Corporal Dom. And Febrile is actively working.
I think that happens later on, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not saying just to them, like, overall. And then Febrile is working with Corporal Dom, and he just wants the Malazans out of here for good. He wants this to return to the Seven Cities.
Yeah.
And just be Seven Cities. Okay. Okay. It's still a lot. Like, I'm understanding more, and I'm understanding more of how dangerous this is for all of them, because, like, none of them really are, like, fully set, and, like, there are 3 high mages, and if one of them decided to cause a ruckus, it would be a whole stunt.
We're almost near the end of this chapter, but I did want to briefly touch on the final scene is Febrile, and he's kind of reflecting, and we kind of, for the first time, hear more about this character and learn about his past. And this high mage actually hates Malazans and is very much believes in the cause, And Shaik comes to speak with him, and together they speak about the sunrise. So, India, what did you think of this conversation between Shaik and Febrile at the sunrise?
I think that she was kind of, I wouldn't even call it a conversation. She seemed a little bit passively saying, watch yourself because I'm watching you, and whatever you think is happening could really be something else. And to be honest, you think you know my motives, but you don't know me. That was my whole idea of her sassy little conversation with him. I thought it was interesting because he did get, I'm so sick of these people thinking, like, it's like literally every single character in, like, the Whirlwind area, they all have their own, like, agendas, and they all think they're the smartest freaking person, and they all are like, oh yeah, I'm lying to him, but he doesn't know it, la-di-da. And this guy, he's so freaking annoying. So I was happy that she just kind of, like, popped in and was like, hey, I'm watching you, I see you. And I think he got a little spooked. So I really liked that. I just like that she's no fool, and I'm glad that she's going around and letting people know. So that's what I thought about that.
She was definitely being a little shady in that conversation.
It was a lot of shade. It was a lot of passive aggressive conversation, and I was here for it. I thought it was really good. I mean, I don't know what the heck she was talking about still, of course, with all of, like, the around the way, like, well, you think, but then, like, something, like, it was just, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. She was confusing, but she was I think that she was kind of conveying, like, don't fuck with me, and I think that she got that point across.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think it is best that whole vibe is best summed up at the, like, one of the last things she says to Febrile is talking about how the whirlwind wall is, like, almost opaque and, like, messes with light. And so she tells him, is like, oh no, you think you're watching the sunrise, but you're actually facing the completely wrong direction. So I mean, like, it's still a nice sunrise, but, like, you don't really know anything, but just, like, really subtly. and then the last line of that chapter is, somehow the newly arriving day had lost its glamour. It's just, like, really
which is great, because obviously it's her dunking on him, but also it's kind of symbolic, obviously. So
yeah.
I want to say, do you know what's really nice is how in the Whirlwind we are, like, as Indy just pointed out, it's just dude who thinks he's the smartest in the room city, right? All of them. And then you get to the Malazan army, and they're all like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm just here. I don't really. I mean, I am like a veteran of like countless fights and wars, but I'm sure you know. It's I shouldn't. No,
there's fine. A pecking order.
Like, they are all just they're so like not trying to be the most important in the room. They're like, that's how you get killed. I'm just doing me here. Love it.
I mean, I don't know if I would characterize Malazan Marines that way, but I do know what you're getting at. There's a difference between the two armies for sure.
I mean, the ones that we've seen, like the ones that we see the most over there, are always like, that ain't me. I don't know what you're talking about.
This brings us to part of the show where we want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon. It's very kind and generous, and thank you for your support. This week, we especially wanted to thank
Ryan, Nick, Vanessa, End Horizon, Chris, Christian, Egelin, and Frank.
We'd also like to thank Jan, Michael, Bradley, Anselm, John, Gerald, Sean, and Matt.
As always, thank you so much. I realized the last couple of episodes I have said where we are at the time of the recording, but by the time I record the outro for this episode, we are going to be like beyond that. So I'm just gonna say thanks. We're continuously blown away, and you all rule very much.
Don't ever change.
AJ, read the summary.
Okay. Chapter 19. Gamet and Tavor look over the ones killed the night before in Leomin's ambush. They discuss commanders, including Dasamol Tor, and then Gamet says he will command his soldiers himself. Fiddler has arranged a scorpion competition where soldiers will bet on the creatures fighting. Fiddler and Cuddle are spoken to by Gamet and Keneb about them being needed for the impending battle that night. The scorpion battle happens, and Fiddler's own scorpion, named Joyful Union, wins. Gamet speaks with Tavor about the incoming battle. Nil and Nether speak about the spirits, and in the end, Gamet rides on. Korab prepares for battle, thinking on the Empire. He sees a squad working on a nearby hill, and Leomin leads the rebel forces there. Inside the camp, Gamet worries. The rebels attack, but the helmets are a decoy, and Marines fire away and detonate munitions on the hilltop. Korab escapes, barely getting away from a deadly piece of clay munition by launching himself off the ground. Both Fiddler and Cuddle are surprised at Korab surviving. Gamet rides back toward the Malazans, and he hears screaming and is wounded by an explosion. Gessler and Pello run to his side. Cuddle reunites with Fiddler, and the sappers discuss the battle, the Malazans, and who survived. Tavor finds the recovering Gamet, who is being treated by healers. Gamet thinks he is no longer a soldier and shouldn't be Fist. He suggests Captain Keneb be promoted to replace him. Korab reunites with Leomin and discusses the battle. Leomin decides to send a message to Shaik, warning her of the 14th Army.
So before the fight breaks out, Fiddler arranges a whole scorpion competition. And although the thrust of this chapter is kind of this clash between Rebel and Malazan forces, there's a whole scorpion little battle. Fiddler has a little joyful union. Josh, what did you make of this whole little scorpion fight and seeing more of these Marines?
Well, number one, everything about the scorpion fight was perfection. Loved it. Loved their betting all this money on these dumb scorpions, and like they assigned a trainer and a feeder and a handler and all this craziness. I thought it was perfect. Here's what I do want to say. On the list of things I thought that scorpion would do, because I had lots of thoughts, right? I was like, it gonna spit acid. It gonna bury under the ground. It get big tail. You know, a lot of thoughts there.
It get big tail, of course.
Right, it get big tail. But you know what wasn't on my list was literally clone itself and then come back, kill the other two things, and then come right back together. Did not see that one coming. I love fantasy books. This is where fantasy books get me, because that can't happen on Earth. And if it does, I don't want to be where it happened, because that's scary. Thought it was cool though. Y'all ever eat a scorpion? I know you can eat them. I've thought about trying it before.
No, I haven't.
I do not believe so. India, although we see these Marines having this fun scorpion time,
Yeah.
afterwards we see Gamet and Tavor talking both about past commanders, and then they speak to Nil and Nether a little bit about the spirits of Seven Cities. So what did you feel about checking in with Tavor, and how are you feeling about the adjunct at this point in the book?
This is a loaded question. Honestly, I feel like if I have to hear another thing about how Tavor is not as like capable or is always in a shadow and la-di-da-di-da, I'm going to be annoyed because it's like, also, you know, Tavor, like you study all these people, so like aren't you arguably like quite capable yourself, you know? Like where's our like pride in ourselves? I don't know. I just feel like she's so annoying and I'm sick of hearing about how she's always in the shadow. And I don't really get it. I still feel the same. I don't really have any feelings about her. I feel like I don't know if it's purposeful or if it's not purposeful that she is kept like not very like I relatable or even like dynamic. Like I just don't. She's just a person who is in charge and that's it. So I don't really have any particular feelings about her. I think that she's a good leader and she seems to be doing what she needs to be doing and that's great. But I like how I could say so many great feelings I had about other characters, like Kaborik or Fellison or any of the characters that you really, I think, get to look into their thoughts and just see them grow. Like her character, I just don't feel has been that way. So I don't really have many personal thoughts about her. I don't know if you guys feel differently or if you like particularly really enjoy her character, but I don't at all. I don't not like her. I just don't have any feelings. I think she's fine.
Josh, do you have much of a read on Tavor at this point?
Absolutely none, which I think is kind of the purpose.
Same.
I mean, she's cold iron. You know, she's calculating. She's keeping her... I didn't mean it to be a joke, and then India laughed. I was trying to be nice about this time.
She is cold iron.
She's very calculating. She plays her cards close to the chest, you know. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's like if we were seeing Whiskey Jack's formative years as a commander, you know, or Dujek, you know. I don't think we're gonna. I'm sure at some point she's gonna be having plans within plans, and we're gonna be like, oh, she's a genius. But like, she's also like, how old is she, Peter? Like 20, maybe.
I don't know if she's that young, but she's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, all I have is that I imagine she's way smarter than I know she is right now. But also, I feel like she's still at an age of a human being where, like, she's probably way less confident than she is appearing to be to her people. So, I don't know. I'd like to see more, like, you know, intimate moments with her, just like one-on-ones with her. We don't get many of those besides with Gamet. Where she's just like, get it together.
Pull yourself together.
Yes, thank you.
Peter, you seem to feel like you don't vibe with what we're saying here.
I do think I'm on a different page, and it's tough for me to articulate my feelings because I just know a little bit more about the adjunct Tavor than you do.
You know a little Tavor.
So she doesn't die?
Well, I didn't say that.
We know for a fact that even if she does that, she comes back. Because Steve has mentioned that, like, she is hugely important later in the series.
He
I have
has
not
done
heard
that.
Steve mention that.
He does that almost every time we talk to him.
He explicitly mentions that the biggest thing is that we don't get to be in Tavor's POV until like book 8 or something.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Setting aside that meta point, I do think it's interesting how we are perceiving her through the eyes of Gamet, who is a character I've always really much enjoyed and connected to, because he's kind of sad and lost, and I do think kind of seeing him reflect on this child who has grown into a commander is an interesting point of view to encounter Tavor through. So,
just the last point on that. In the beginning of I think chapter 8 or 19, whenever Fellison was talking about Tavor being young and like being 9 years old and practicing like strategies with her little dolls, she says she was never a child, and that really I think is an interesting point because she still seems just so like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you guys saw my hand movement.
No, I think you're touching on something that I'm maybe projecting onto the character. My interpretation of the character is that she is very fixated
That's the word.
on strategy or these types of things. And it's almost like she is connecting and talking through to people through discussing military strategy and battles, that she almost doesn't have another avenue to talk to someone through. Do you mean like this is how she's trying to connect with people? Because as she was a kid, she, at 9 years old was reenacting military strategy,
Right.
which is, not a things that every 9-year-old does. Do you mean? So I kind of see it as this is her way of trying to relate to people,
I get that. I do get that.
It's like when I'm with my dad and his friends, and I'm like, football.
Go Birds!
Love that pigskin. I can't say that. They're all Washington football team fans.
But like legitimately, go Birds.
Oh yeah.
So just really quick,
this brings us
before we move off of Gamet and Tavor, Gamet had a pretty good thought quote where he just says, "Age is no instant purchase of wisdom," which is a very broad quote, but I still thought was very good.
I love that.
Yeah. So
It's true.
No, of course it's not instant. It takes years.
cool.
I gotta go.
Damn it.
Cool.
So this brings us to what we were reaching towards earlier, this skirmish between the Malazan forces and Korab, who is our kind of point of view into Leoman's forces. So there's these munitions, there's this whole thing, there's an explosion. So Josh, what did you think of this this first clash of forces out in the desert?
I mean, it definitely showed. God, I'm gonna say it again.
Cold iron.
It definitely showcased like a cold iron versus cold iron. I don't know. To elaborate on that, it showed good like tactical leadership. I don't know. It shows like when I think of really good fantasy battles, in my opinion, because I've read many good fantasy books, it's never the like, all right, and now armies, it's never just like two big armies clashing. It's always like those layered plans, It's Leoman, okay, I've done these attacks these times, now we're going to change up the time. It's, Tavor being like, he's going to think that, so I'm going to give him this easy thing to look, I'm going to give him this easily targeted thing and make it look like we've laid plans, but be purposely bumbling, but have good plans happening on top. I don't know, I love that. That's like it's so many layers to think about, and we see with the death of that huge squad of Marines with when Gamet goofs bad, like, we see how even within those plans, it takes the errors of a single soldier or commander to just like have it go to shit somewhere. I thought it was really interesting. And I also love how quick it is. This was like a tops 7-minute battle, probably before
it's very quick and it's very explosive and deadly. AJ, what did you make of this battle? You seemed to be excited about it earlier.
I loved this battle. It was a great time. I just loved the construction of it in terms of just hopping around points of view, just like in the exact moments of things happening. Mostly when Korab grabs the helmet and puts it on top of the cusser, right? That was a cusser.
Yeah.
And then explodes.
Sharper.
See, that's what I don't know which one's which. It was a munition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like all around really, really great. And then when Gamet realizes that they are not doing very well and runs in himself, that sucks. That sucked. Just because I like Gamet. I now like Gamet a lot. Mm-hmm. And that made me feel very bad. The aftermath of this made me feel very bad for him.
Yeah, so in the aftermath, we find Gamet, and he is being treated, but he was pretty wounded because things do go pretty south for him and his Marines in the fight. And then he says Keneb should be promoted. So at the end of the battle, we see that. So you say you're connecting a little more to Gamet there, AJ. What do you think you're connecting with him about?
I think we've gotten his inner monologue this whole time of how he doesn't think that he's cut out for this job. And, he obviously feels like he's in over his head. I don't think that's anything new. But I just think seeing him run in to try and like turn the tide somehow, just by himself. And I don't even know if it was in an effort to turn the tide. It was just like, I should be in there too. Really just kind of shows the kind of person he was when he was a house guard. And just kind of the person he is, where he's just like, I can't be on the outside of this and just let all these people like go to battle for me, basically, because I think he wants to do his best by Tavor. So he feels like he needs to actually like physically do something because he doesn't really know any other way to show I don't know, allegiance or like effort or whatever. Like he thinks everything needs to be like this physical manifestation of like, I don't know. Allegiance is the only word I can think of.
He needs to act himself to prove it.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
And then,
I want to.
Sorry. I just one last part is when he is running in and we're getting the everybody around him yelling and we're getting his thoughts and we have too many voices, screams of the dying, the flames, they're falling away. Darkness is closing in. My soldiers are dying everywhere. It's failed. The whole plan has failed. And then everybody's running away as he is running toward and he has another thought that's I don't understand. Not here. The other way. Go there. Go to my soldiers. Where he is just like he has this. His first and only instinct is to run toward the force that is killing his men. He doesn't want to lose anybody. He doesn't want to seem like a weak a leader, and he doesn't really know how to show that without acting. So I just really loved this part. And wow, sorry.
I wanted to say I really connected a lot with this AJ as a teacher and coach because it's very hard to see it like when I'm coaching lacrosse and I see like obvious things that like, oh, they should be seeing. How are they not seeing this? It's very hard. You want to put yourself like you want to be in there shouting at them, do this right next to them, but you can't. You have to be away. You have to be like, okay, in the future we'll have to think about this. It's different, obviously, when you're a commander and the failures lead to many deaths of people who you're in charge of. I can't imagine how that feels. Yeah. And like as his first time seeing it, that's got to be devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh, as a lacrosse coach, do you think you're more cold iron or?
Oh my God.
I would like to call myself kind of just like rubber. Or maybe just like tar, because I don't know, man. I can't think of anything funny.
What do they use to make the sticks out of? Aluminum? What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. I bought like a $20 stick and I just throw balls at kids.
Nice.
And yell faster.
Well, AJ, that was a great explanation of why you connected to Gamet. I think that was
passionate
awesome.
And beautiful.
Thanks. It really affected me.
So let's keep things moving and get away from Readthrough at the moment with Chapter 20.
Chapter 20. On the Tisti Eater ships, Cutter and Apsalar speak about denigrating warrens, the Throne of Shadow, and Shadow Throne schemes. Then shadows crash and swallow around them. Onrak and Troll walk alongside a tortoise and speak of mating. They then discuss the Logos Talani Mass along with the First Throne and Kellanved's history with it. They speak of the Nameless Ones trying to claim the First Throne, and the unknown way the Emperor found the throne and claimed rule of the Logos Talani Mass for their own. They then speak with Monarch and Ibro Golan about the Renegade Talani Mass and their history. Pearl and Lestara walk together and speak of Shaik Elder, Velison, and Rebirth. Lestara recalls when she killed Shaik and thinks on the Tobakai bodyguard. They then decide to go further into the whirlwind and bicker and flirt as they draw near. Once they cross into the whirlwind, they grab onto each other and begin to kiss. Kalam walks in Readthrough and hears the ghosts of the past speaking about Decimbalakis and the Nameless Ones. The ghosts fade away and he addresses the ghost of a Tano spirit walker, and they speak together. Then, massive unknown dogs attack him, and he calls upon demons to help defend him. Demons answer the call in many places, and Shadowthrone is shocked at seeing these strange hounds. Crocus and Apsalar crash into a dark and dusty chamber, and they find Iskaro Hust waiting to welcome them back to Seven Cities.
AJ, you were bragging to me about how much of this conversation you got. You were like, I got Shadowthrone, I know the Emperor, I know Dancer, I know Boo. So, like, why are you feeling so fucking hot on understanding this conversation in the old guard of the Empire?
Because I didn't read the first two books, really. I read the third, where we learn stuff about Dancer and Shadowthrone and Cotillion and Kellanved. All four of them. But it didn't really register for me at the time. I remember you guys being really hyped about it, but it didn't really click for me because obviously I didn't have any backstory for it. But this time when they came up, I felt pretty confident reading through this of like what was happening and who was who. I don't know if you ask me now if I'll have the great recall on it, but at the time I felt really good about it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I want to say, just for the record, I look forward to talking to you about the first and second book someday. You know?
Someday. That's a teaser for a future episode.
So that's going to bring us to On-Rack and Troll, who are walking alongside a big turtle and talking about fucking. And they discuss their history and the first throne and the emperor and...
oh, shit! Troll's a virgin, right? Don't we learn that?
And
yeah, we do.
This is the perfect time to just quick kick it into the bone zone. So, Josh, what did you make of learning all about this history of the First Throne, about Kellenbed and how he used it, about the Nameless Ones? We're getting a lot of low-gross specific Talani Mass lore here.
It would have been really cool if I understood it more. Mm-hmm. I'm still like a little iffy with some Talani Mass stuff. Here's one.
Okay.
In a world where there's literal gods and like demons and shit, why are thrones literal ass chairs that just exist places? That seems bad.
Chairs are powerful.
What does that mean?
And
I've never once in my life sat in a chair and been like, yes, it's all mine.
Well, how many thrones have you sat in, Josh?
That's true, PB. You sat in the Iron Throne, didn't you, in New York?
Yeah. Anyway.
Sick. Anyway, I don't know, just like, they were like, yeah, we were like, man, we don't know how to get this throne, so we picked it up and put it somewhere else. And I was like, how can you do that? Like, I just have many questions about that.
Well, Josh, you just moved. You know how to move a chair.
Yeah, I know how to move a chair, but if someone else sits in this chair, I'm not bound to their will for eternity.
It's
you know what I mean?
Chair,
when my dumbass cat is in his chair, I am kind of bound to that cat until it dies. So I guess actually that was a mistake. Okay.
Well, why do you think we call a lot of recliners lazy boys? Because the lazy boy sat in it. And now it's bound to him, the lazy boy.
That's true.
I think I'm going to cut that out. That sucks so bad.
Indu, you were shaking your head desperately for me to not come to you with this topic. Is that saying a lot of this bounced off you, or you're not a low-gross Talani Mass fan, or?
No, I'm not. I don't understand these god-darn Talani Mass. I just don't. They're everything. It's like, when in doubt, if you don't know what it is, it's likely a Talani Mass. Like, literally. And the Nameless Ones.
Sure.
What? Like, when are we going to know who they are and where they are? They're probably Talani Mass. They probably are.
You know, we briefly encountered them, at least, we heard about them in the last book.
We keep hearing about them.
We do keep hearing about them.
It makes me think, I was talking to AJ about how much he should have read the second book, and I think part of the reason is I think there's an interesting thing going on here in book 4, where there's kind of a rhythm and a kind of poetry to repeating a lot of the same places and locations and thoughts from the second book. You know, it's very purposeful. We return to the scene of where the rats attack Felicin and Bowden. We return to the Salandra. We return to the Nascent. We return to the Shadow Temple. You know, we're returning to a lot of places again and seeing it kind of from a different angle. And it's interesting to return to the Nameless Ones once more. Although, of course, it is a little different. And we're going to learn more about them eventually. I feel fine in saying that, you know? So
I would fucking hope so.
Yeah, no, I know. And it's just like, it's all of the things, though, that I like really don't like to discuss. Like the Azath house. What the fuck is that? The Nameless Ones. Who are you guys? Talani Mass. What are you not? So all that to say, I don't like their storyline.
I just want to go on the record and say a lot of things are not Talani Mass. You know.
Maybe, but a lot of things are.
It's true.
Like,
sure.
like the spirit,
Actually,
the Shaikh spirit. I'm gonna bring that right to the thing. You know.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a fair
true.
point.
What the
Fair
heck is
point.
that? That's so freaking random. And I know that's later
is.
on, but that just goes to prove my freaking point. And go ahead, Josh, please.
No, you keep popping off. You got this.
I'm curious. I'm confused. The Talani Mass, were they the first frickin' people or not?
Okay, here's where I'm popping in. Okay, Peter, can you do some helping? Okay. Here are some questions I've been really struggling with.
Okay.
Calor, remember that guy?
I remember him.
Okay.
How could we forget?
Was he originally human or a different race?
He is definitely not human.
Okay, it was. I know he had. Was his the first capital F empire, or was he after the first capital F empire? Because he had an empire.
I do want to say the exact race Calor is. I do want to punt on and would love someone to write in.
Okay,
but I will say there are multiple first empires. So
what does that mean?
You can take it up with Steve.
There was 7.
You can take it up with Steve. That wasn't Peter's choice, but there are the first empire could refer to different things.
Because we've definitely heard something like the Talani Mast, I think, have even been called the first something like that, like something similar to that.
Yes.
And it drives me up a goddamn wall.
Yeah, so
there can only be one first
ancient
empire.
Civilization by Decembaclus called the First Empire.
Yes.
But that's not really the First Empire. He just branded himself the First Empire because he thought it sounded good, but in no way was it, you know? And then there's also the
India,
so
we're
that's
only
just,
4 in.
That
if we're gonna get
specifically
out,
is most
now is the
referred
time.
to as the First Empire, but it's not the First Empire. Do you know what I mean?
It's a first empire.
It is a early empire.
The first empire.
I'm going to start calling myself the first Josh, you know? Because fuck it, I guess. No rules.
There are no rules. Damn it.
I do love when Onrak is asking Troll if he knows of the nameless ones, and Troll's like, only that they're very successful. And Onrak says, what do you mean? And Troll's answer is, well, their existence has remained hidden from me. I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Which is just really... It's that good Troll Onrak shit that I love so much.
I also love their conversation about their sex lives. Next to the turtle, that's just wholesome stuff, you know?
Oh, and they walk in front of the turtle and it turns around. He's like, oh, what's it doing? He's like, oh, well, it sees us now, so it's running away.
Yeah,
like,
that was funny.
Fuck,
that was
dude,
funny.
Oh, my God.
Speaking of sex life, we come to Pearl and Lystara. In the desert, they talk a little bit, and then they cross through the whirlwind, and then they get a little steamy together. India, what did you make of this sequence with Pearl and Lystara?
That sexual tension has been building for a while. At first, I actually did think it was hate. Eventually, I was like, maybe it's not. And boy, was I pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect it in that moment.
Same.
But I'm not mad that it happened. I think that they are so funny, and I like their back and forth, I think is incredible. I think it's just fantastic. And I ship this union.
All right, India blesses the union.
And
actually, I'm ordained. I can do that.
What?
I got this. I'm ordained. I can bless this union. I don't know what that means.
Oh my God.
Hell yeah. Well, I forgot what I was gonna say. Shit.
Sorry.
Come on, Josh.
It was something about something that they did that I thought was funny. Motherfucker. I'll think about it later. Never mind.
Okay. So Josh.
No, because I remembered what I was gonna say, and I actually think that was a big point.
Okay, please.
Just really quickly, when they realize that Belson is the new Shaikh, that's like pretty crazy. It's like a pretty cool thing that they did there.
Oh yeah.
But that's it.
True.
Yeah. Oh, I do. Well, that you brought that up, I did also want to address a small passage. Not passage. It's just one line where they say that Felison becoming Shaikh was less chance or coincidence, more like a timely convergence of desires and necessities. It's just like, it all just happened to line up, and they were like, yeah, we kind of feel the same things. Like, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was definitely caught up in the romance of it all. It's important to talk about that, too. That brings me to just quickly asking, Ange, so now that they kind of have put those pieces together, and they have that knowledge, where do you think their story goes next, now that they're in the whirlwind and they have this piece of kind of crucial secret information?
I believe they had a steamy moment, but I still think that Pearl is a piece of shit. And I don't trust him to like have Lestara's like back while they're in this Raku place. So I'm a little bit nervous about what's going to happen now that he got the information that he wanted. I think he brought her because he knew that she was going to be helpful, obviously, but I don't know if he actually like gives a shit whether or not, she's gets home or not. So I don't know. I feel like he's going to do what's best for him to get back and be able to get what he wants. What does he get for not finding this information out? Like, what is he doing this for?
Bring it back. He could just bring it back to Devore, I think, right?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I just think that I don't know if they're going back, guys. They might just.
Yeah. If he betrays Lestara, I'm gonna burn this book. I'm never gonna read this book ever again.
I just feel like it's a little like sometimes, it's just sex is just that.
Yeah.
And Lestara seems to have the feels, but I'm not sure that Pearl has the feels. So I'm concerned about what's going to happen with them, like, in this situation. I have no idea what they're going to do with this information. I have no idea. Maybe, I don't freaking know. Maybe Pearl will be on Felison's side.
So Clom then is in Waraku, and there's all of these ghosts, and then these dogs attack him, and then there's the demons, and so Josh, what did you make of these ghosts, and what did you make of where Kalam is right now?
So starting with where Kalam is right now, in addition to where Pearl is, I do want to say it's very funny when, I can't remember if it's already happened or later, when Corbeil Dom's like, what if there's a claw? What if Shaik's smart enough to get a claw? And that whole time, I was like, but how though? She's going to fight she couldn't get it. And I was just like, how dumb is he? And now there's 2 claws here, and I love that. And I cannot wait. I want one of them to kill Corbeil Dom, so he's like, I knew it. And he like goes to his death being an idiot. Which will be very good. Anyway, in regards to the ghosts, how many times is this book going to remind us that this desert was lakes? Or that other places were lakes? I feel like that has been I don't know if that's like, if there's going to be like a world-ending flood or some bullshit that happens, but we are reminded constantly that all of this desert was a sea at some point. And I feel like that has to be moderately important. Don't really know what for yet. Happened again here with Ghost Sea and Ghost Boats and Ghost Armymen. It was just so much. I don't understand fucking anything. I don't really know who Dasin Balakis is. Still don't know who the Nameless Ones are. Don't know why there's a Tano Spirit Walker here, because I thought that was one dude, but apparently it's like a whole group of... I don't know.
Yeah, I was confused about that as well.
And then these hounds attack. Woof, woof.
Yeah, well, okay, so these hounds, and they come again in the next chapter or some point.
This brings us to our new section, Who Let the Dogs Out? Who let the dogs out? checking up on the various hounds. Oh,
okay, we can do that. We can do that. Troll. No, wait. Onrak. Oh, wait. Fuck, I can't do that. It's too long. That's the answer, though. So these are like the Hounds of Darkness, right? That we saw that Onrak released for those things, right?
Mm-hmm,
Clearly? Okay,
definitely.
cool. So there's that. They're scary. They're like hella stronger than the fucking Hounds of Shadow, which is frightening because they were already terrifying all the time.
Yeah.
So what kinds of hounds are these?
Of darkness.
Hounds of Darkness.
Which is a purer power than Shadow. Maybe,
correct.
I don't know.
Shadow is a combo of dark and light. Mm-hmm.
Yes. That is true.
So I've been told.
India, nice.
So at the very end of the chapter, Crocus and Absalar return, and they're reunited with the Scaropust.
Can I come back?
Okay.
I feel real bad for all those people. Kalom gave those diamonds to that dude, and like all of them just got fucking murdered so badly.
Yeah.
Although there was that one group that was like plotting to kill a merchant, and they all got destroyed. That was fine. But like one was just some dude drinking wine with his girl, and then a demon popped out. That's no fun.
That is a little fun, Josh.
Just the way the cookie crumbles, man.
Jesus.
Okay, so then at the end, Crocus and Absalar, the mysterious shadow had enveloped them, which we didn't really talk about because this podcast is all over the place, and they're brought all the way to Seven Cities and encounter Iscarl Pust. Did you think this is where they would end up?
No.
How the fuck would we know they end up here? This is a tower in the desert. They were in the sea.
Well, you know, these deserts, Josh, they actually used to be seas. If you
I'm
didn't
gonna come to Japan and punch you in the mouth.
Oh, don't punch the PB.
All right, this show's so long today. We gotta keep things moving.
Okay.
Chapter 21. Febril reflects on his past when he destroyed ancient holy texts to keep them out of the hands of the Malazan. Febril meets with Camistrilo, and they speak more about the past and the current invasion. They speak about Malak Rel and Corblo Dam and Banapin's imperial ambitions, as well as the ancient Talana Mass on 7 cities and the First Empire. Leoric feels power approaching and dons Leosian armor and goes to Karsus Grove. Felison is asleep, and he enters the Talon Warren. In the ancient memory of Rariku, there is a massive lake, and he watches 7 massive beasts be tracked by Kachane Shamal. Leoric is pulled out of the path of these creatures by a massive white dragon, his father, Osric. On an island in the sky, Leoric speaks with his father about the past and the Hounds of Darkness. The Hounds of Darkness, Deragoth, beasts that bound with Desambalacus. They speak more of the Deragoth and this memory of Rariku. Osric then brings Leoric to the edge of the memory, where they free the demon Greyfrog that binds to Leoric. The Leosian returns to Rariku, with its new familiar following. Shaik faces the future and the impending clash with Tavor in the 14th. Bidithal comes and they speak of Rashan and the Whirlwind Goddess. Haboric has become a priest once more, and they argue about the old man. Bidithal is dismissed, and outside Shaik's presence, the mage Febril confronts him. The two speak about whether Bidithal would join Febril and the others in their betrayal, and they speak of the future. Bidithal agrees and returns to his temple. In Dom's camp, Scalara has continued to spy, but 2 soldiers following Febril's orders have come to kill her. They escort her out of the camp, and as one begins to rape her, she kills him. The second soldier comes to kill her, but a figure with glowing green talons rescues her. The man says he is Haboric, Destriant of Treach. Together, they go back to Haboric's temple. Leoric goes to Felison and introduces her to Greyfrog, and says they plan to leave the camp soon. Haboric meets with Leoric, and they agree that the battle will happen soon, and that Haboric needs to leave camp with Felison. Korab rides alongside Leoman's forces back through the whirlwind to reunite with the rest of the rebels. Carson nears Rariku, thinking on the impending battle. Sibal comes to speak with him, saying he is the Knight of Chains and telling him more of the crippled god. Karsa refuses the role and the crippled god, and says if the crippled god is not careful, Karsa will break his chains and kill him.
We're going to talk a lot about Leoric in a second, but quickly, Josh, I just wanted to get your read on Febril, who here we hear exactly specifically why he kind of hates the Malazans and his history with the Empire here.
I feel like he's the least interesting of anyone in the Whirlwind army, honestly.
Okay.
I I know we needed to... We're talking about Febril. Are you good, India?
Yeah, but he killed his families, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he killed his family.
Lit. That was so interesting, I thought.
Yeah, Josh, I don't know what you're talking about. Least
Killing your family is lit. You heard it here first.
It's not the first bad take in this episode.
Oh, shit.
3 for 4.
Oh, I got AJ's. AJ texted us all puster bust.
Yeah, I meant to address
I think
that
he
at the
should
end
be
of the last
fucking
chapter, but-
kicked off the podcast. So I don't know. I just I didn't. I'll say this, okay? I think that what makes people interesting a lot of the time for me are their motivations.
Okay.
Rather than their actions.
Okay.
And I think Febril's motivation is the simplest of anyone. He equates Malazans with losing things and the destruction of knowledge. Therefore, Malazans are bad. Therefore, they must go. And that's just, and I know it's a bit deeper than that, but he betrayed people and stuff, but I don't know. I just we're learning about him so late in the game, and his motivation is so much smaller. His desires are so much smaller than everybody else's that I was just you're kind of here. You're a player, but you're not the player.
But see, I think that's why, maybe, India, this is what you meant. I think he really resonates for me, especially in contrast to Corblo Dam and Camus Rila, who I was dunking on earlier, because, he actually hates Malazans and thinks the Empire is a bad, colonialist corrupting force that like is destroying his homeland. Do you know what I mean? And you know, he actually fucking believes in the cause in this camp of people who have all of these different ambitions, you know? So, you know, we could argue about whether his position's correct or whether he should like kill all these people or he should have killed his family or these things, you know? But I don't know, he actually believes in the party line of the rebellion, you know?
I get that. I still think it's just such a small, singular motivation for him. You know, it's very wrapped up tidy, and I just was kind of like, okay, that's him. Yeah, no, I just didn't really think about it much after that.
I think it's going to come up again.
Mm. Well, this brings us into Leoric, who I have to tell you, I completely forgot about this section and really rocketed me into my own dream world. As he goes in, he meets his father. There's all these ghosts. We talked about all this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. So, India, how much of this Leoric journey were you expecting? Where did it take you? How do you feel about Leoric right now?
I'm interested in Leoric. Leoric and Leoman, I keep mixing up, but now I didn't. I just realized in my head, no. Leoric is the one with the familiar.
Yeah.
That's the most interesting part about him.
Not that he's a secret Tysleosian.
What does that mean to me at this point? And his dad's like the
big one, the king, or whatever.
What's it called? He is the.
He's like the Animander Rake of Leosian.
That was what I was gonna say. Yes, the Animander Rake of the. Yes, that's what I was thinking exactly. And I guess my question is mostly regarding what's with the daddy issues.
Did you see his dad?
Have you met his dad? Because he was pretty bad.
No, I know, but I'm just wondering, like, is this just it? Is he just like in and out, and that's just it? Like, is that the extent?
It's like, imagine if your dad was like a world-class thing, right? And that was his thing that he was into, and you're just there. That really seemed like what their dynamic was.
I just didn't see it. I'm so
the dad's priority is not Leoric in the slightest. That is not what his he is there, and that is fine for him to be there. But Osric's got Osric stuff to do. Yeah,
and he does say that, and like I don't know. I have a hard time connecting to the newer characters in this book, him included. I'm just not fully there yet, and I think that happened in the other books too. I'm not gonna lie. It takes me a while to like understand them, and then kind of like get invested in their story, I guess. And I think this was like a start, but I was not already very interested. So this was just like, oh, okay. And I was just far more excited about his little familiar that he brought home.
I was going to say the funniest thing about this all to me, and I think like the thing that perfectly paints these two's relationship is he's like, where's your familiar? He died. Do you have a new one yet? Why don't you have a new one? And is just like unable to understand that his son could love and feel grief. And it's just like, what are those?
I also really like the part when he was like, I could only stand your mother for like 3 days. Like that was it.
Fucking gold.
And he was like, oh, how long could you stand me? It was like 3 hours. Jesus Christ.
I thought that was actually really funny.
That was good as shit.
And it was a good, like, representation of their relationship.
Yeah, he's not getting a lot of support and positive role model there,
His dad's a dragon. How much better of a role model do you need? So badass.
Maybe like emotional intimacy and support from a father figure. I don't know, just eyeballing to like.
Nah, dragon. Any day of the week.
Who needs emotional support?
Did we know that Moonspawn was a Kachane Shamal thing before?
No.
Okay.
No, that's your
that
first time
fucked my
learning
day
that.
up.
Because, hey, what the fuck?
I'm learning more and more. Okay, here's an issue I have. More and more people who in book 1, 2, 3, whatever, that I'm like, these are the strongest players in the game. But I'm learning so much of it is just like fucking hogwash and luck.
Yeah.
Like, I thought Moonspawn was like a chunk of the shadow world or some bullshit, or like a mountain that Animander Rake was like, I could use this. And it's just like he found a ship somewhere. Yeah. And he was like, cool, mine now. Yeah. And he, like, it's, I don't know. you invent such cooler things as the backstories for these things, and then like you find out that it's just like, nah, it's just stuff.
Just some like really, really old dinosaurs. They did it.
Yeah, some old ass dinosaurs made this mountain fly, and then I took it.
Yeah. So
There's a conversation about Bidethal, and we learn he's going to help Febril, but I feel like we've spoken a lot about the High Mages in the camp. So I want to skip over to where Scalara is going to be killed. She is a rape happens. She kills the rapist. Then there's this other thing, and then Haborik rescues her. And Josh, what did you think we'd be coming back to Scalara, and how did this whole sequence play for you?
I assumed we had to come back because Steve has proven pretty consistently that there are very, very few one-off POVs. You almost always get like a second one, like that circle breaker from Gardens of the Moon.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you got to come back at least. You got to show up at least twice. I'll say this: I did not expect Corbelow Dom to be on to her as well as he was. That caught me off guard. You know what I mean? Also, can we talk about how, like, gross it is that she's just able to, like, control her gag reflex well enough that, like, she super needs to vomit and she can just be in that zone for hours pretending to be under Durhang? That's beyond disgusting and incredible. I read that and was, like, feeling legitimately nauseous. It was, like, so gross to me. Anyway, I just had to point that out.
And it's at this point, though, we were kind of touched on it earlier that you were kind of criticizing her for what she was speaking about. So
yeah, I mean, I think what I made a point earlier. It may have been cut by AJ. And what I think I want to say is Scalaria is a character. Like as a character, it's tough for me to get behind her in like her decisions she's making because she is. Gonna be careful with my words here. I think she is past the point where she's likely to be redeemed. I'm not saying she is irredeemable, but I'm saying she is as a character. I think her arc has led her to a place where, unless she's becoming a major player, she's probably gonna stay brainwashed and loyal to Bidethal and ready to do some not great stuff. And I was like, that's not. It was a weird character for me. I don't know. I couldn't.
And
really
you're
get with
making
it.
a disgusted face. What are you thinking?
I disagree.
Yeah.
I freaking disagree. I think that she is going to have the comeback of the year. And I say this because Haborik saved her.
Yes. Now that she is doing this, I think I don't know about that because for all I fucking know, she'll just turn on it and bring in a bit of thought. We don't know.
No, she won't.
I don't know. I have some trust issues with characters in these books.
Yeah, so Haborik saves her, and then they go into the camp, and Lorik kind of conspires with Felison and Haborik about them trying to lead the camp as three: Haborik, Felison Younger, and Scalara. So AJ, what did you make of Scalara joining the three of them, and where do you think they're going, and where are you with that trio right now?
I wouldn't say she necessarily has joined them currently.
That's fair.
But I get what you mean. But I don't know. I feel like we haven't spent enough time talking about how cool it is that Haborik has green hand talons now. Because that's
true.
That's real cool. And also that he is just like insanely powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Like unbelievably so. That he was just able to just be like, oh, Felison, yeah, just like pluck. I'm just going to pluck the whirlwind goddess out of you for a sec. She can't come in.
Yeah.
Like that was like, and it was like no effort for him to just be like, oh yeah, here, come on in, but leave her outside. Like we're good. That just,
I did. Sorry, keep going.
no, it's just that just like blows me away about how casual because he was like, I don't really want this, and now a chapter or two later, he's like, I'm super fucking powerful.
I want to say I'm going to walk some stuff back. I had forgotten that Haborik invokes a massive change in Scalara when he like kind of brings her back.
When he fully heals her. Yeah.
I don't know if he healed her necessarily, but he brought sensation back to her is kind of what it sounded like.
He said something about, he said the word heal in there, but it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I don't know. I forgot about that. So look, I'll say this. Something may come of it. I'm not really sure what just yet. Like she's been here for all of 3 seconds. So it's not unlike Erickson, though, to do that. So maybe she is a huge player.
Oh, I loved in the beginning of this this section with Scalara, the word outrage just like comes through her head, and she's like, "Oh, yeah,
that was really good.
I
just reread
and
that.
then after she's healed, the first thing she says is outrage, and Hemwork's like, "Huh?" And her thought is outrage. Yes, that. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like Scalara is gonna. I don't know if she's gonna like become another part of Treach's like council or whatever, or like whatever the fuck. But I don't know. I feel like she might stick around. I think.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where it's gonna go for sure.
Yeah.
At the end of this chapter, India, we touch in with Karsa, who we haven't seen in a little bit, and he's riding back towards Rariku. He has one more conversation with Sibel about the crippled god and the House of Chains. So, what are you thinking about what the crippled god is doing right now and related to Karsa? We haven't seen or heard about the crippled god a bit outside of these 7. So, what are you feeling about him, and what are you feeling about Karsa right now?
I don't know why well, actually I do. I understand why he's so interested in Karsa being on his team. Karsa's, pretty powerful. But he keeps refusing, like, the advances that they keep making for him. So I'm wondering if eventually he's just going to be like, fuck it. What's this about? Or at least have the conversation. But I don't really know past that. I have no idea what the freaking crippled god's doing. I feel like that's like 10 books away from my current thought process. And and he is doing things, but I feel like, yeah, he has been pretty quiet for a while. But he does have that guy on the inside, the guy that Karsa, like, broke, right? Doesn't he follow him? You know the guy I'm talking, the one that...
Oh, with the...
Silthar?
No arms?
Sildar.
Yeah.
Silgar.
Yeah.
Silgar.
So maybe, I don't know if it has something to do with, like, that issue, or I don't really know, but those are my thoughts on that. I don't really have many like, I guess, deep thoughts.
I'm very much looking forward to finishing this book so we can talk about Karsa in whole, but I was aggravated with him in this scene, I feel,
Why?
So that's I'll just say that. So.
I still think his arrogance will be his downfall. His arrogance is what has basically brought him through everything, but I do believe in the end it will be what destroys him.
Yeah.
It's him being like, I will free him and then kill him.
Yeah, well, that's probably what it's going to be.
sure?
He will
Right.
free him.
Yeah.
He's going to stab somebody and be like, I bet you didn't see that coming. And the crippled god's going to be like, no, I did, you fucking dummy. Like,
This was my plan. I must have been stabbed.
right, yeah. And also, this crippled god shit is just like, oh, this seems like a bad plan? Well, it's actually my real plan because it's chaos, baby. Like, fuck off. Just come up with a real goddamn plan. Like,
I just feel like the crippled god is going to need some kind of, I don't know. I have no idea how this kind of thing works.
I really get a hot iron vibe from the crippled god. I don't know about you guys.
The crippled god is pure hot iron.
Hot iron summer. All right.
oh, fuck.
We're all hot iron.
Oh, also, I love Grey Frog. Grey Frog, best boy.
Grey Frog, I don't know if Best Boy. Grey Frog could eat someone and I would not be shocked.
I love Grey Frog. He's adorable and he is so cute. He doesn't want to offend. He's just hungry. Like,
Yeah, I don't want to offend. That was
Same.
the best.
That was all right. His speech is pretty great.
he's so cute.
Chapter 22. Fiddler speaks with fellow Marines about the Ninth Squad. He banters with Balm, Deadspell, and Throat Slitter. The Marines speak about the commanders of the army, and then Bottle comes with a small doll. Bottle uses the doll to try and divine the forces at play, first thinking the hood, then it indicates perhaps the rope is here. Fiddler thinks he knows what assassin it truly is divining. Gamet hears the screaming of the spirits. He thinks on Keneb and Tavor. He goes to the wall of the whirlwind, where he finds Grub and speaks to the boy about shiny things and thinking too much. Keneb and Tamul find Gamet, then together they ride to find Tavor. The adjunct will use her Otatural sword to break the whirlwind. Despite not knowing what's on the other side of the wall, they intend to break it. However, before she fully unveils her sword, the wall withdraws and they can enter Readthrough. The commanders together are nervous to ride further in, and Gamet claims back his title of Fist. Fiddler and the Marines watch the whirlwind withdrawing from far, wonder what it means, and together speak about the army's commanders. Gamet and Gamet ride together, speaking of formations briefly, and ride into Readthrough in dusty silence. We're introduced to a lot of different Marines, and then Bottle, the mage in Fiddler's squad, uses some divining, and he tries to use this doll, and we just get a little more insight into these Marines. So, how do you feel about the difference between being on the ground, so to speak, with the Marines, as compared to when you're with Gamet and with the commanders? What do you think about that difference, and do you prefer one or the other?
I do think that when you're like with the boys, it's more like I enjoy it more because it's more just like palling around and funny and just getting to know, I think, their personalities a little better rather than when you're like, high up, you're strategizing, you're trying to figure things out. It's less fun. It's incredibly boring. And I feel like the people that are in charge tend to be a little bit more like melancholy, like, woe is me. So it's less interesting, I think, in my opinion, to read, but I'm not really interested in the strategy and that kind of conversation. So I'm always going to side with the more entertaining and like silly parts.
Yeah, because usually when all the Marines are hanging out, it's pretty much pure bants and just like goofing and joking and whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
And to contrast that, I think you're right. Gamet is particularly sad here, and when he goes up to the screaming wall of sand, he has quite a heavy conversation with Grub, who says to him that...
Is Grub says, 5?
Yeah, Grub's very young.
What the hell?
Grub says...
Well, I'm gonna talk about Grub in a second.
Yeah, Gamet encounters Grub and he says, Father thinks the same. You think about things there's no point in thinking about. It makes no difference, but I know why you do it. And I kind of love this scene and the idea that they're having this conversation next to the whirlwind. And, I don't know, it's just kind of really resonated with me. Josh, why did you want to talk about this scene in particular?
I mostly want to talk, honestly, not about this scene, but about the, what do you call those things before the chapters?
Prologue.
The epigraphs.
Epigraphs. I want to talk about the fact that we are seeing this scene with Grub, and it's bizarre because we've seen an epigraph that, like, in X amount of years, he's gonna become the first sword of the Empire.
How could he not?
And it's just like, but like, I read that and I was like, in my mind, I had like dashing, heroic fighter, and then in this scene, I was like, oh no, this boy broke. He's like just gonna become first sword of the Empire just because he's gonna be like a broken man who's really good at fighting. Like I'm very, very concerned for this young boy's future. Also, definitely gonna see a lot of bad stuff in this fight coming ahead. It was so bizarre, and the talk with Gamet was chilling.
Chilling's the word for me.
Yeah, Gamet's in his own head so hard. In a way that most of these characters really aren't a lot of the times. Like, I don't know, a lot of the characters, especially the soldiers that we see, are so much just kind of like, well, gotta keep going,
So AJ, Gamet then rides off to meet with Tavor and Keneb, and all the commanders watch as she's going to break the whirlwind. The whirlwind withdraws and they are allowed to enter. What did you make of this scene? And what do you think of them entering the whirlwind like this?
I kind of felt how they felt, where they were like, oh, why did it do that? And then I forget who it was. It was like, well, the whirlwind goddess probably thought it was better to just like open up instead of take that hit, which like for sure that's like definitely sounds like a solid plan. But then they also brought up the point, why do it at all? Which like also, yes, why do it at all? Because I don't really think it impeded anything much, except maybe extend it a couple days, like, and also put like a big marker like, hey, here we are. Like, I don't know. I thought that was an interesting thing, but I do love toward the end of this scene, Gamet kind of gets his groove back. And he's like,
yeah, he reclaims his title as Fist.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I'll be Fist and I'll do it good this time. And he punches
Keneb?
No, it starts with an O, I think.
Oh, he punches.
Yeah, because the one guy's like, "Oh, you can't do it. You're too weak to blah blah blah," and that's like the final straw for Gamet. He like punches him in the face and knocks him off his horse or whatever.
Is it the other fist?
Yeah,
Blistig.
It's not Blistig
Or Lieutenant Randall.
Hold on.
No, I think it might be Blistig.
Oh.
He punches someone. You're dead on. At this point, it's completely eluding me.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't. I also cannot find it. Yeah, but he punches them and then realizes like, oh, that was his idea the whole time, which I thought was really nice actually. That like the rest of the commanders and stuff kind of have his back, which is something that we haven't really seen for anybody besides like the ex bridge burners, you know, like nobody else seems to like have each other's back besides these like Fiddler and all them, which was just really nice. I liked that a lot.
And before we go, I just want to kick us quick into a correction section for a bit. Because it was pointed out to me earlier in this season, I referred to Gamet as a Nappin, and that he was House Perrin's Nappin tutor, but I was just mistaken. He is not Nappin. He was their house guard, as we've established, and I was conflating those kind of two characters from the Perrin's childhood. So that one's my bad.
Nice.
As always, send in corrections. We get stuff wrong in the show, as I'm sure you, the listener, have noticed.
Yeah, I think in life we all get things wrong.
That's deep, man.
Cutting hard tonight.
As always, you can send those corrections to 10 Very Big Books at Gmail or Twitter, or you can just send us compliments or whatever you think about the show. As always, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the finale of House of Chains, and I just want to hear a big prediction going into the climax of this book. Indy, I'm going to come to you first. How will House of Chains end?
House of Chains will end in a blaze of glory.
Okay, we got it from 10,000 feet up. AJ, we need to go 5,000 feet up, a little more specific than that.
My immediate thought upon finishing these chapters, because I've been taking notes now, which has kind of helped me a bit. So my immediate impression upon finishing these chapters was I can't wait for there to be no battle and Carson to show up and just wreck shit. That was my immediate reaction. But I think to get a little more granular, I think the rope that Bottle divined, I guess, isn't Kalam. I think it is Lestara, because a while ago, Cotillion, like in like the episode that I edited today, in like chapter 12 or 13, Cotillion comes and talks to Lestara. I forget about what, but that does happen as well. But Cotillion's got his fingers in a lot of pies, if I'm being honest.
Facts.
It's true. Earlier in these chapters, Absalar and Crocus speculate about it, but we didn't talk about it because this show was too long as it is.
Yeah, I'm curious, actually, if
you talk about those two, you've stolen both of my predictions.
All right. Sorry, you go.
So, Josh, coming back to finally for you, how will House of Chains end?
Similar to what AJ said, I too believe there will not be some giant battle. What I think the bigger thing is I have no idea why Absalar and Cutter are in this book, except that they have to somehow, in the next very short amount of time, get into the whirlwind and be involved, I guess. And I actually don't believe that Karsa will be anything. I think he'll like come back and kill one person. It's going to be something ridiculous. Like, I think he comes at the exact right time and kills one guy.
I think he's going to be Bidethal's comeuppance or something, because I forget who it was, but like, don't worry. They were like, don't worry, Bidethal will get his.
Boric. Boric did.
Was it
I think Leoric said that.
Yeah. Both the Oryx.
Yeah, both Oryx.
But not Osric. Don't get it confused. Don't get it twisted.
Damn it. We're going to have to see where everything falls.
Wait, I gave a really bad prediction.
You did.
Okay. Do you want to hit us with a little more specific one?
I do want to say something. I think you guys are wrong. And I think that there will be a battle of some kind.
Okay.
And in that battle, I think... I don't freaking know. This book is a lot. Never mind. Never mind.
Can we be done? I'm tired.
Yeah.
All right. So Inge came back in with that steaming prediction.
Yeah.
And
it's too
I'm
hard.
looking
Peter, what's your prediction?
I'm looking forward to... Imagine I just spoiled the book. I'm looking forward to finishing the book and talking about the climax of House of Chains with everybody. So tune in 2 weeks for that.
Hell yeah.
And stay safe, everybody.
Love each other.
Hello, everyone. Producer AJ here, drinking some grape juice. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast, and big thank you for being such a wonderful community that is able to have tough conversations without shutting others down. There were conversations all over the place about our last episode in our Discord and on Reddit, in our emails, even in our Patreon messages. We really appreciate that y'all kept it civil and were able to be open to differing opinions. That's really great. Thank you so much. If you'd like to be a bigger part of this wonderful community, you can always head on over to bit.ly/VBB Discord to join everyone there. That's capital V, capital B, capital B, capital D, Discord. That link will also be in the show notes. If you'd like to check out our Patreon, you can visit the link in the show notes or head on over to patreon.com/10verybigbooks. At the time of this recording, me recording this outro right now, we are at 114 patrons and $379 a month. I say this every time, but seriously, thank you so much for any amount that you can contribute. We all love making the show, but it really does take a lot of time and planning and editing, so just know that every single dollar that we get toward our Patreon is appreciated, and it really does help us make more of the show. Side note, I'd love to do something for reaching and passing 100 patrons, so if you have any ideas, please message us on Patreon. We always want to hear from you. Speaking of, you can always make your voice heard by tweeting us your thoughts and feelings about the show at 10verybigbooks. You can also email us 10verybigbooks@gmail.com, and as always, thank you so very much to Dan Gesrick for making our spectacular logo. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Gesrick for a question about the last time the Islanders were in the Eastern Conference Finals. And of course, the wonderful music in today's episode is by the one and only Amaranthin from their album Simulant Rain, which you can find along with their other music on bandcamp.com. Links to their pages will be in the show notes, and 10 Very Big Books will be back in 2 weeks on September 25th talking about House of Chains, chapters 23, 24, 25, and 26, and then we will be done House of Chains until we talk about our final thoughts and the mailbag episode and our eventual interview with author Steven Erikson. But that is a few weeks from now. So for now, I'll say talk to you then, and thank you so much for listening.
I play Fortnite sometimes.
I'm not good at it, so I don't. But if I was, I would.
You can put that in the show.
Yeah. It's just wild. I think
I typed it in. I said, I typed in who still play Fork Knife, and it just says nerds. So
you also did say fork knife.
Yes, that's the game, isn't it?